All right. Let's talk about college football for a quick second, then we'll get to everything else. And LSU tying the game on Sunday against FSU, and then a blocked extra point on a situation where their special team sucked. They could have gone for two. How many more weeks of the college football season do I have? And don't ever bet on Ohio State either. They'll always screw you over. Anyway, I'm Stephen Rabinowitz.
Now.
Well, it's whatever. I'm Stephen Rabinowitz.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Anthony Strait, the perfect blend of sports and anime, of course.
That we always usually do that. And right on the other side, or the last corner, is Mr. Joe Tufaro back and will join us for our annual NFL preview 2022. Joe is a writer of many things for the NFL. You got anything to plug?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We'll
talk during the season.
All day to figure it out.
Yeah, you let us know. We'll bring up some of your reffing life a little bit later on in the show. I want to get your take on a couple of things. Good evening. Welcome to the On the Sports Lines 2022 NFL preview. As former Monday Night Football performer and canceled musician Hank Williams Jr. stated once, are you ready for some football? Local previews, national previews, Diva Whiteout previews, chop block discussions, predictions that we will always throw out. This is a weird show, but I want to start off with college football for a very quick second. This past Friday, we saw something that we very rarely see in college football playoff history: progress. A 12-team playoff was enacted. It will start definitely in the 2026 season. 2024 and 2025 is on the table, although SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey kind of put a kibosh on that. We'll figure that out as we go along. The format will be very simple. The top 6 conference champions, and then the 6 next best teams. So what we're basically talking about is that it's a very interesting format in itself, guys. But one thing that I'm very interested in, and we have a long time to talk about format. We have a long time to talk about why the Rose Bowl is going to probably have a semifinal every single year, while other bowls only get quarterfinals. Those things are great. We can talk about that all day. We can talk about the system all day. What I really think is the most interesting part of this is how quickly the 180 for this happened, because all of a sudden we go from something that last year was universally denied and not really discussed again to, in 2022, the same system coming along and it pretty much getting universally praised. I think a lot of the commissioners just decided, you know what, before we end up having super conference team hell, let's try to get something together that gives all of our conferences a shot. Even the Mountain West, even the American, even the MAC, for God's sakes, can get themselves in the playoff very easily. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion on how the ranking system works. And as always, the one thing I always say with college basketball, if you expand the field to 68, we're going to always argue about teams 69, 70, and 71. If you expand the field to 12, we're always going to argue about 13, 14, 15. It's what we do. It's the internet. So I love it. Obviously, you love progress. And if you're going to say that the players have been playing too many games, aren't playing enough games, not focusing enough on athletics, where have you been the last 30 years of college football? But there are a lot of other things to talk about with this. And Jay, I'm going to have you play off me for a second here. Having this happen now is exciting and weird at the same time, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember you and I talking about this when it actually went down, and you said to me, "See what fear does to the these commissioners." And honestly, if fear was a driving force, okay, fine. But I think a lot of it had to do with the group of university presidents who basically called out the commissioners of the Big Ten, Kevin Williams, ACC, Jim Phillips, and Pac-12, George Kliavkoff, for being petty little children last year and throwing temper tantrums that scuttled what was basically the same plan that was approved last week. I truly believe that those 3 commissioners were pissed that the SEC poached Oklahoma and Texas from the Big 12 and just didn't want to agree to anything proposed by Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, because they saw it as the SEC just wants more chances for its expanded conference to put teams in the CFP. They're the big bad of college football. They're ruining this for it. And yet, a year later, on the heels of the Big Ten expanding and the Pac-12's future uncertain, suddenly those three guys are all on board. I guess that's what happens when the adults and the children in their rooms, things get done for the good of the sport and also put more money in everybody's pocket. Kickoff was against expansion last time because he wanted more clarity on how the revenue would be distributed. Yet as soon as USC and UCLA left for the Big Ten and took 40% of his conference's projected revenue with them, suddenly it was no longer a sticking point. Phillips was against it last time around because he thought his fellow commissioners should be more focused on sorting out things like NIL. Really, dude? Yet as soon as the Big Ten signed an $8 billion TV contract that will pay its members 2 to 3 times more than what the ACC's will, that was no longer a sticking point for him. And Warren was against expansion last time because he felt the Power 5 conferences should get automatic berths. Yet as soon as his Power 5 conference poached 2 of the premier programs from another Power 5 conference, that was no longer a sticking point for him. I call bullshit on all of y'all. I do like this new format, Rabbi, I got to say, where you have those 6, as you said, the 6 highest ranked conference champions, along with 6 at-large teams. It prioritizes conference champions. It gives plenty of at-large access, and it also allows Notre Dame to remain an independent. I like the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4 and get a first round bye. I like the way they're having the other 8 teams play each other in the first round, with the higher seed having home field advantage, hopefully more often than not on campus, or at worst, a quote unquote neutral site to be determined by the higher seed. This format's going to keep every current Power 5 conference and at least one group of 5 conference nationally relevant right up to the final week of the regular season. And that makes the sports better, which is the only thing that the rabid fan bases that populate college football really care about. Not doing this ran the risk of further alienating the other 8 FBS conferences that are not called the Big Ten or the SEC. And that is not good for the sport. Now, this also may have the secondary consequence of maybe slowing down expansion and realignment of conferences, which would also be great for the sport. I do have to wonder, guys, if this plan had been approved last year, if USC and UCLA would have actually left the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. Maybe not. If so, that would annoy the hell out of me. But bottom line, guys, we finally have a CFP format that actually makes sense, even if we aren't likely to see it until 2026.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. I wonder what took it so long when you see Division 2 and Division 3
Doing it for
figure it out
decades.
with a playoff. But well, there was a couple of things that stood out to me with this format. The top 4 seeds get to actually pick the bowl games that they want to go to on New Year's Day, out of New Year's Day 6. And think about this. If you're Georgia and you're one of the top 4 teams, you would think automatically you're going to stay in the Peach Bowl where you can play at home, pretty much your own backyard. Or if you're LSU, you're going to stay in the Superdome and play at the Sugar Bowl. Well,
to be fair, you don't get your choice of the Big 6. You get your choice of whatever 4 bowls are going on that year, and that's one
right.
of the
But
things.
if those are available,
yeah. But I'm just letting you know what he's saying, because the Rose Bowl is probably going to keep where they are, and that's the next thing to really talk about. It's scheduling and when these bowls are going to actually, and when these bowl/playoff games are going to actually happen. That's one of the things we still have to kind of iron out.
Yeah. But the other thing is that with more teams involved in this playoff, you're going to have less, premier players sitting out because they're playing in CFP playoff games as opposed to meaningless bowl games. And that's better for the sport.
Yeah. I mean, without question, I'd rather see a player give it their all in a first round college football playoff than the Craft Bowl or whatever crappy bowl game that we're not paying attention to. Yeah, I mean, there's so many bowls I kind of lost track of that. But I mean, also it's a win for teams, for colleges like Cincinnati, like the non-Power 5 teams, because now you get 6 at-large bids, and that kind of opens things up for teams outside of Power 5 conferences to get in. Yep. And also with Notre Dame, even though because this is a system that prioritizes conference championships, conference winners. Notre Dame cannot be in the top 4 because that would automatically go to colleges that won their conferences.
Yep.
So the highest that Notre Dame, an independent team like Notre Dame could go would be a 5, which wouldn't be so bad because I would think you get a first round matchup, you're going to stay in South Bend and play in front of your own home fans, especially with the weather in Indiana now, during the colder months of the winter. That plays to your advantage. So it's a win all around. It's just a matter of, obviously, it took fear and money to kind of bring a common sense ideal into fruition for college football. I think it's a big win for everyone. Like I said, I mean, we'll still have a couple more years on a college football playoff in its current format, and then we'll be able to argue over the number of 13 and 14 teams that get left out at some point. So that's always going to be teams that are going to get left out of the argument. But I do think this format actually makes more sense. It does get more games in. It allows for a playoff system where you can actually be a home team, like in Division 2 and Division 3. And then it still allows for the New Year's 6 bowl games to have a meaningful impact, even in the years where it's not part of the rotation, like the Rose Bowl, as Rabbi mentioned. Maybe it does keep it still traditional Big Ten, Pac-12 matchup in the non-years that is in the rotation, whereas if it's in the rotation, if you're a Pac-12 winner and you got a great record, I would think you would want to stay close to
Anthony. Your mind is like making my head blow right now. I think we have to kind of wrap this.
I know, but I'm looking at it in a math scientist standpoint, whereas, okay, if I was in an opportunity and I had a chance to stay closer to my campus as possible,
we have 4 years to probably talk about that. It's like science. It's like science with chemicals that actually haven't been invented yet. So we'll hold off on that. Joe, wrap us up here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I think there's a lot to be worked out, as we said, and there's a lot to be seen. Are guys going to play? Are players going to stay and play just because of that? Are they not going to force 50 bowl games on us? Because there aren't the time, because there's going to be a big game now in December instead of having to fill all that empty space from what was the Army-Navy game till New Year's Day. And they had to have a football game every day because people were going to watch it no matter who it was. So the mayonnaise bowl and all that kind of stuff, hopefully all that stuff goes away, which I don't see it doing because those guys still want some money. So there's still going to be something there that's going to have to work out where they're going to have to compensate those guys. I do think it's exciting that maybe Georgia has to go to Michigan and play, or somebody, that could be interesting to see how that goes. But I also want to see how the kids react. Do they stick around? Because guys have sat out of national championship games because they're going to the draft. Does this change that? And does it make it a little bit more exciting for them to do that? We've seen in the last couple of years, guys sitting out the national championship game because they don't want to play, because they don't want to get hurt, which I don't blame them. And now that they're going to get paid as college athletes, that may change a lot of things too. But like Rabbi said, we have a long way to go before we get to any of that. So, but it's a good idea. It's a good start.
Yep.
And Jay, I thought this matchup out here for you for a first round matchup. How about this Ohio State visiting Michigan in the first round? Wouldn't that be
happening?
Wouldn't that be something?
Not
going to happen.
Not going to happen because
not going to happen.
Trust me,
the committee's not going to seed it that way.
No, they can seed it that way, but usually one of those teams is going to be a top 4 team, so it's very unlikely for that to happen. Yep. And that would require Michigan to actually win a postseason game.
Hello.
All right. Let's move on. It's all about the major leagues of football tonight, so let's talk about the NFL. Sure, the Giants had a competitive preseason, but this is still a team predicted in many circles to finish 3rd and 4th in most cases. And Joe, I'm sorry, I'm going to mention a win over under, but I will. Vegas has this set at 6.5 in most circles. Tonight, we have concerns. It's like we're going to air our grievances like it's a post-presser scrum for AEW, and we're going to talk about them. So let's do so. Joe, we have questions for you. Jay, give us the first.
All right. So, Joe, as we talked about in the production meeting, we're kind of changing up our 3 burning questions this year. So we're going to talk position groups on either side of the ball, and Rabbi's going to talk non-division game you got your eye on. So I lead off, and I have the offensive position group. So running backs and fullbacks, wide receivers and tight ends, or offensive line. I mean, we know what the hope expectation is from quarterback Daniel Jones this season, and from what we've seen in camp and in a very small amount of preseason action, being cautiously optimistic isn't a reach, but until we actually see him run the full Dable Kafka offense for 4 quarters and games that count, everything is speculation. So we'll talk about him a little further down the road with you as the season unfolds. Instead, what I want your take on is which of those position groups should be gives you the biggest cause for concern as we're heading into the season?
Yeah, I have to stick with the offensive line because, and we've had this discussion a few times, only because the one that they built is not there yet. With Shane Lemieux getting hurt and they're still basically trying guys out at left guard. The continuity isn't there yet. They don't have everybody back that they've started to. They do have the 2 tackles that have been playing very well. Everybody seems to be raving about them, but that middle of the line is still a little bit in flux because of injuries, and not because we don't think these guys are talented or that the coaches are good. Now it's just because the guys that they actually picked to play there aren't ready to play because of injuries. So, and that of course affects the offensive line, of course affects the running game, affects how much time we have to get to these wide receivers. Having Darius Slayton on the team to me is good, but if he doesn't have time to run those routes down the field, then what good is it? So, I think you guys know I'm old fashioned. It starts up front, and if you can't protect him, he's not going to get another fair chance at being a quarterback because he can't do it. They're opening against Tennessee, and our old friend Bud Dupree, who ate up Saquon Barkley on opening night 2 years ago, is standing there on the other side. So how much of that is going to be different this time? And I think that's a big key to this, to how they start out the season.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. You and I both know that, it takes time for an offensive line to gel, and injuries and position changes increase the length of time it takes for that chemistry to form. And if you're doing the bulk of that bonding, if you will, in real games at the beginning of the season, that's going to slow down what you're looking to see from those skill positions. So it will be interesting to see how it shakes out and the impact it does have on the rest of the
only thing I found interesting was because we also had Daniel Jones playing the open practice at the stadium, and then against the Jets, the way that the Giants played against Jets. I think what came out of that was the defense they've been going against in practice has been all over them.
Killing them.
Been coming from there all over the place. That it was almost easier, like, oh, this is how everybody else is going to play. So it's hard to really tell how accomplished anything is. And in this preseason, especially because of that. So I think it's not as alarming as I would put it, but it would be nice to see all the guys actually healthy and on the field that they had picked to play those positions. So.
Yeah, and I got to tell you though, it's interesting because I heard Jones make that same comment at one point during camp. And you know what? Honestly, if practice ones versus ones is infinitely tougher than what they actually will see in games, then that I think will be a positive down the road.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Anthony, defense is yours, my man.
Yeah, Joe. The defensive side of football had a lot of changeover from last season, even with coordinators. Out is Patrick Graham, and comes Don Martindale from Baltimore, who brings a reputation with aggressive play calling and a more blitzing attacking style defense. But the team he's taken over has had some changes as well. Additions at the defensive line with Thibodeau being the top draft pick, but also the linebacker core is a little I would say a little up and down, especially with a surprise with Blake Martinez being released last week, and also you have a very young secondary behind that. In your opinion, which of these three groups concerns you the most? The defensive line, the linebacker core, or the secondary?
Yeah, I picked the linebacking core even before Blake was gone. We talked actually the night before he was released, but I think that, and if you notice, nobody's picked him up. So that's that tells you a lot about decision making and what other people see. And we don't see everything; we just get to read what other people see in practice and stuff. The fact that I always do that with baseball players, they go, "Oh, I can't believe they let so and so go." And you go, "You notice he's not playing for anybody else." So that must tell you something, or coaches do that too. I picked the linebacker group only because there's no true leader there. I think when you're up front, you have Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, you have the two young kids on the outside. Like, the names there. In the back, it's McKinney and Adoree Jackson and guys who have played, and Julian Love's been there now 3 or 4 years, and the names back there. To have Tate Crowder in the middle and a couple other guys, Kaplan and these other guys that have come along the last couple of years, they're not known entities at this point. Now, to be fair, Blake Martinez only played 3 games last year, right? Rabbi, he went down in game 3. So
yeah,
the fact that Tate Crowder walked in and played the remaining schedule shows that he knows what's going on and he knows the team and they trust him. And Martindale, what he brings is he's not a I don't want to say this to compare him to anybody else, but he's not just an all-out, in-your-face, let's see how many times we can knock down a quarterback. He's smart about how he goes about it. He does bring guys from different places, but he covers himself up in those places, and he has a lot of moving parts. And, they're aggressive is what it's known as. It's not known as just an all-out, can we send 7 guys? He tries to get there with 5 or 6, but he also tries to figure out how to cover himself on the back end. A lot like Spagnuolo used to be, had a lot of interesting schemes. So I just say the linebackers because, again, there's really no known entity there except for Tate Crowder. And how are these young guys going to, they played well in preseason. One of them made a big play in the first preseason game that won the game. I think that got people excited about it. But, again, they're young and they're inexperienced, but they all seem to be pretty fast and they all seem to be good in coverage. And so that'll be an interesting thing. Of course, they're going up against the best running back in the NFL to open week 1. So we'll see how that works out. But
hopefully he doesn't truck anybody. Hopefully Derrick Henry doesn't truck anybody on his way through the field.
Yeah. So that's the spot that I would say would be, a question mark. Not so much concerning, but a question mark.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there because I do look at the linebacker core as maybe if somebody goes down, do you have the depth to pick it up? But so one thing I have seen from this defense in the preseason, and I was at the preseason game against Cincinnati. Their pursuit of football has been incredible. Like to see guys swarming to the football, even on run plays, and even after a catch. I think that's been a bit of a step up. And that's not to knock the job that Patrick Graham did the last couple of years. I think he did a phenomenal job of what he had. But I think more often than not, because of the limitations, they were stuck playing a lot more zone that I think they wanted to. So you didn't really see the pursue and to see 6-7 guys get onto a ball carrier right away and kind of limit a big play. Maybe you see it a little more this year. I don't know, maybe because the scheme will be a little more aggressive, but we'll just see because, like I said, the preseason, you only get so much from base formations and vanilla play calling.
Right. Yeah. I think they'll play hard for Martindale. I think that's.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they'll play hard for Dable. I think that's part of the deal is they're certainly rejuvenized. They're certainly excited to play. They're certainly excited to get out there and play somebody else. Again, they played very well in the preseason games. They played well in that practice. These are all things that do show things, do show some improvement. But again, until the lights go on, you really don't know what you got. So.
Yeah. What I'm interested to see, excuse me, Rabbi, I'll wrap this up. What I'm interested to see with Martindale's scheme is that in Baltimore, with those exotic blitzes, he ran a lot of man coverage with his cornerbacks. And as Joe, as you and I both know, the guys slated to start at the cornerback slots are not known as tier 1 man defenders. So it's going to be interesting to see how much man or how much type of hybrid coverages, Martindale plays in the secondary to not leave guys exposed.
But I think
you know what
I think he's more from the Rex Ryan part of I'm going to send that free safety because he's not doing anything anyway, and I'm still going to have I'm still going to have my linebackers drop back and cover that middle part of the field and have the other. So I don't think he's going to be like the guy that got fired from the Jets. Leave everybody out on an island.
Williams.
No, Greg Williams will never do that.
Yeah,
Greg Williams will not giant be.
I think that's where that kind of gets lost, where everybody's like, oh, you're going to have to cover one-on-one. But I think there's ways of covering that up without having the top guy. And again, I think Adoree Jackson and Robinson can cover a guy for 10 yards if that's all it's going to take. Don't forget, if you're getting that pressure, you only have to cover for 10, 15 yards and a couple of seconds. Again, if you don't get home, you're going to get burned anyway. It happens. Even if you were playing zone, you're going to get hammered.
Okay.
It's going to be
before we get to my part of it, and I do have to say this: if you're worried about getting long throws against you, the first 10 weeks of the season for the Giants is definitely not going to be a problem because a lot of the quarterbacks that they face in these non-divisional games, and to be fair, they actually only have one divisional game in the first 10 games of the season, and then they close with 5 of the last 7. Starting with Dallas on Thanksgiving. But here are the quarterbacks they'll be seeing in the first 10 weeks. Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, Davis Mills, and Jared Goff. Not necessarily a who's who of star quarterbacks in there. You have a different opinion on what the non-divisional game to watch is, but I do like this schedule a lot for the Giants, more than I've seen in a long time, and that could go very far to the Giants actually getting off to a good start for the first time pretty much since the last time they made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't disagree with your choice. My choice was Baltimore the week after your choice, which was Green Bay. I don't disagree with your choice about looking forward to that game. I don't like that it's been moved to London. I don't like playing that whole thing. I don't like everything that's going on around that. So that's why that bothers me more to have to do that travel.
I like that better than Lambeau though, which is where that game would have originally been.
No. It's a Giants home game, is it?
No, it's a Green Bay home game.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I agree with that then. But again, I don't like that whole thing of also then predicting this big upset against Aaron Rodgers with having to put up with all that travel and stuff. It's a new coaching staff. I'm not sure how good they are at doing all that stuff. I think coming back the week after and having the extra week to go up against Martindale's old defense.
They don't have the extra week, by the way. That game is the week after on the 16th.
Okay. So maybe it'll be more of a challenge then and, see what we do. But like you said, the first half of the season, that's all there are non-divisional games except week 3 against the Cowboys. So, on a Sunday night, of course, we can't play the Cowboys without it being on some national TV thing.
Of course not.
No matter how bad we get, we can't get off the national TV when we play the Cowboys, or no matter how bad they get. But I think either one of those are a good test. Like I said, playing Aaron Rodgers, obviously, and who knows what the Packers are going to look like. We'll get to that in the next segment about who they're missing. So who knows what their offense is going to be like. How long is Bakhtiari going to stay healthy? He says he's playing in week 1. Well, that might be the only week he plays. We don't know. There's a lot of question marks about a lot of teams. So I agree with you. I agree with you, Rabbi, that there's some interesting games in there, and that is certainly one of them, the Green Bay game. I don't find anything else to be all that challenging. I mean, if you can't go out and beat Carolina, you can't go out and beat Cleveland and those teams, then we're going to have a lot longer season than we thought we're going to.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you on the Baltimore thing. I mean, Baltimore's an interesting team. They're a team that could go one way or the other. And I mean, how healthy is Lamar Jackson? Is his contract situation going to get in his head? How much is that passing game going to, be worse without Brown? Is the defense going to take a step back, even though, Mike McDonald, Martindale's, previous top lieutenant, has come back after, being Michigan's defensive coordinator. Baltimore's the team that, to me, is the interesting mix that could go one way or another. They'll be the team that I'm watching, since they're inside the Steelers division. So that's going to
plus also Plus, also with them going back with Martindale, he knows Lamar Jackson like the back of his hand because he saw him every day in practice. He knows he can't make that throw outside the numbers. He knows he can only throw to tight end. He knows that he doesn't have anything to do downfield, and he knows that he'd rather run first than throw the ball. So seeing that every day, they're going to give him a lot of keys, a lot of clues, a lot of things to what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's talented enough to change something, to be completely different. He's not going to suddenly start throwing it all over the field and not run because Martindale knows what he's doing. He's going to do what he does, and it's either going to work or it's not going to work. So I think that's why that's an interesting game too.
The chess game between Greg Roman and Wink Martindale is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah,
I think. By the way, I think if you think that change of coordinators is going to change the Baltimore defense and their talent, you're insane. You're insane. It doesn't, but I think that Baltimore defense is as good as ever. It's their offense that is going to be the key, especially when you saw Lamar Jackson down for that team last year. They were essentially done. Yeah. All right. As for the Jets, well, just take what I had for the Giants thing. Pretty much it's the same thing, but they had an undefeated record in the preseason, and you know what that means.
Nothing.
0-17 abound. But they had a worse fate, unfortunately, as their QB Zach Wilson suffered a knee injury in week 1 of the preseason. And now we just learned today that he will not be playing until week 4, at least, when the Jets would be playing at the stadium formerly known as Heinz Field. But
he's fine.
Let's talk about the Jets. They are a team with an even worse over/under, and that's 5.5 wins. And I wrote that before the Wilson news today, so I don't know if that's gone down or not. This regular season needs to have progress to probably keep the Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas regime for another year. Okay, we're going to talk about our same issues. Jay is going to talk about offensive issues. Anthony's going to talk about defensive issues to ask to Joe. And I'll talk about the schedule again. Look at the schedule. All right, Jay, back to you.
Yep. Joe, as with the Giants, we know that, what the hope expectation is from the quarterback this season, that Zach Wilson makes the proverbial second year leap in Mike LaFleur's offense. But until he recovers from that knee injury and is back on the field, as Rabbi said, looks now to be week 4. Everything is speculation. So we'll have that conversation further down the road as the season unfolds.
But it's definitely at least week 4. There is no way he's playing in 1,
he's not playing week 1. No.
We're 2 and 3, as officially mentioned today by the doctors.
Yep. So instead, like with the Giants, I want your take on which of the Jets' offensive position groups, running back, fullback, wide receiver, tight end, or offensive line, that in your mind is the cause for most concern coming into the season.
Well, I have to say, you guys know I'm not totally into the Jets. Jay asked me the other day about the schedule. I had to look it up. But I looked at their depth chart. They have 1 running back on their depth chart. They have 1 guy, and that's it. And it's like, okay, you're going to need a running game because if you do have this young quarterback, even when he starts to play, he's going to need a little help.
Yep.
And even when you're playing with a 39-year-old guy, he's going to need a little help. So maybe you need a running game, and they have 1 guy, and the backup to the 1 guy is a rookie who's obviously never touched the ball. And there's another guy.
Well, it's going to probably, for many people, Breece Hall is going to probably start this season and has a lot of potential, as a lot of people say, especially in fantasy. His preseason was terrible to a lot of people and took him off of the train, but he's probably going to at least get most of the touches in the preseason. And then Michael Carter, who is technically listed as the Jets lead running back, but that's only really a name, is going to probably be more of a change of pace back. But it's still, Joe, a very unproven position that we've seen.
Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to twist an ankle on a play. Somebody's going to do it's. You can't go in with 2 guys and go, oh, we'll just switch you guys off. It's not. Somebody's going to get hurt, and you're going to wind up with nothing for half a game. You're going to wind up with a guy who gets a concussion, and you're going to wind up with nobody to run the ball for half the game because you can't play the guy every down. It's impossible. So, and again, you don't have Patrick Mahomes. You don't have Jared Allen. You don't have Josh Allen. You have Joe Flacco and your other quarterback who's not going to play for the first 4 weeks. and I think this is the first misstep by this coaching staff thing of, oh, he's fine. He's great. He's perfectly healthy, but he's not going to play for the first 4 weeks. Really? You expect it? And again, the Jets kind of get a little pass in this town because everybody wants them to win and everybody's a Jet fan. All the Eisens and all those guys, they're all big Jet fans. Just watch their preseason show that they had on. All the guys, Adam Schefter and all those guys talking about how great the Jets are going to be. They have no depth. They're at that point again where the Giants were for a while, where you have zero depth on offense. So I'm not sure where you're going with anything. They have a couple of good wide receivers. Their offensive line, their big star stud offensive lineman isn't playing. He's hurt again. So where are you going with all this stuff? It seems to be very unprepared for what's going to happen. And Jay and I say this every year. Jay knows I say it every year. Guys do get hurt in the NFL. Yep. And if Michael Carter gets hurt in week 1, what are you going to do?
Yeah, the depth behind Carter is very young, very untested. I mean, look, does Breece Hall have ridiculous potential? Yeah, the guy averaged, over 1,500 yards rushing and, 5.7 yards a carry his last 2 seasons at Iowa State. He's a threat to catch out of the backfield. He had over 1,700 yards total scrimmage the last 2 years. Can he, is he a threat to take it to the house? And every time he touches the ball, if he gets to the second level, yeah. But again, as Joe and I are fond of saying, he's a rookie. You don't know how rookies are going to perform until the rubber actually hits the road. You look at the guy. I was looking at this depth chart. I mean, Ty Johnson, guy's more of a special teams guy. Zonovan Knight is an undrafted rookie, who's probably likely to spend more time being a returner. Carter's the only one with any legit NFL experience.
Right.
And
again, you can't run him 1,200 times. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
he's not gonna. He's not gonna run 1,200
you're not gonna Derrick Henry or Najee Harris.
No, you're not running him 1,200 times. Way. But just give the Jets a little bit of credit in some skill position. That was probably one of their better positions in 2021, and at least in my opinion, it's pretty much the best of a very bad lot. It's going to be the worst. It's going to be the best in 2022. Anthony, let's talk about that other side of the ball, the one that Joe knows that we should care about more than we actually talk about.
Yeah, well, the other side
Defense
of football
wins championship.
Yeah, well,
sometimes.
Considering how bad the Jets defense was last year, they were 31st overall. I don't know if they got the idea that defense was championships because they didn't show up for most of last season. But obviously, Robert Saleh in year 2 was hoping that the defense turned it around at some point. In your opinion, which of the same question with the Giants for the Jets, which of the defensive units are you keeping your eyes on the most going into the season?
Again, you said it yourself, Anthony. They really don't have much to talk about. They were awful last year. To talk about Robert Saleh, again, the guy is now the head coach. He's not the defensive coordinator. He doesn't have a lot to do with it. If he had a lot to do with last year, I'm not all that optimistic about anything getting better this year. So my answer to the question was the defensive backfield, only because they're putting a lot of hype, as the Jets always do, on their number 1 pick, on this guy, Sauce Gardner, who may be wonderful, who may go to the Hall of Fame someday, but I don't think he's going this week. And as I said to Jay, this isn't the SEC. They're not throwing away from him for the first 8 weeks. They're throwing at him for the first 8 weeks. Yep. And they are playing some good guys, some good quarterbacks in the first couple of weeks. So he's going to get tested. And if they think he's just going to stand out there on an island and they're going to leave him alone, hopefully that's not what their plan is. But the way that they act, the way that they talk about it, the way he talks about it, there's going to be, everybody has a humbling point. Everybody from Lawrence Taylor to Ronnie Lott to Dick Buck has had a moment where they had to learn an NFL lesson. Some guys learn a little quicker than others. Some guys takes a little bit of time. The guy, again, I'm not saying he's not good. I'm not saying he's not great. I'm not saying he's not going to the Hall of Fame. But I don't think he's going in week 8.
Nope.
As Bill Parcells used to say when they played the Hall of Fame game, don't leave anybody there. You're not that's not what's going to happen. So he's going to have to create these guys seem like they've created their careers already. Like, oh, I'm going to be the best in the world. And great. You should be that confident, but I just don't see a lot on their defense at all. And that's going to be the weakest point at that point. Getting Mosley back, getting some of the guys back up front. They've always had a good defensive front. They've always been able to put some pressure, getting some linebackers back. They'll be okay, but I still worry about that secondary and how they're going to scheme it. Again, it's something you have to see over the first 4 or 5 weeks to see how it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the quarterbacks. I mean, look at the Jets' first 9 games before they hit the bye week. They open against Lamar Jackson. Week 3, they get Joe Burrow. Week 6, they get Aaron Rodgers. Week 7, they get Russell Wilson. Week 8, they get Mac Jones. Week 9, heading into the bye, they get Allen. I mean, that is a gauntlet, man. That's going to be a hell of a test.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just put I can't believe you just put Mac Jones in the category of gunslinging quarterbacks. Don't ever put Mac Mac Jones and Josh Allen. Don't ever put Mac Jones and Joe Burrow. No. I'm not even. You should not even have any more say after that.
Hold on. I am going to say it because at no point did you hear me use the phrase gunslinger. I merely
you should not even put him in the category of good quarterbacks, especially. Don't stop. You commented on every segment so far, so it's time for my choice to. But you should. But that's the break.
Don't try and come at me when it comes to.
I'm not coming at you. I'm just telling you. You've commented on every segment, so I'm going to have to stop you by putting Mac Jones in the same category with everybody else because that's ridiculous.
Didn't he have a perfect passer rating in that game where he threw 3 passes or whatever it was?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. This is the guy who you really trust to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Jay immediately also stole the other point, like he's done most of this show so far. But I do want to mention very quickly what the non-divisional game that I want to talk about is. And one thing that I find very odd, these schedules are getting weirder and weirder by the year. I feel like they just throw darts at a dartboard and say, you play this person, you play this person. And just remember to save week 18 for a divisional game. But weeks 1 through 4, the Jets play the AFC North. And honestly, again, I know this is our Jets bashing station, but you're pretty much putting the dirt on the grave right there. It's at the least they can win that game at Cleveland in week 2. But outside of that, good freaking luck with the rest of the schedule. You have another game that you want to focus on for non-divisional, but there's no real easy game in that schedule before the bye in week 10.
No, I just again, Jay will tell you I had to look the schedule up because I knew the first part of it was just brutal. So there's nothing to look forward to. There's no interesting game to me. The only reason I thought Denver would be interesting to see how much they could lose by. And to see how much Russell Wilson will test that defensive backfield, because I think he's the one that's where they're going to go with that game plan is they're going to throw it all over the place in Denver and play really good defense, and maybe Zach Wilson will be back by then and see how he responds to that kind of a defense coming out of Denver. But I don't think there's any games that look. I don't know how you're a Jet fan this year. I don't know what the game is that you would look forward to. Like you said, maybe you win one in Cleveland. Maybe you win one later on. They never play well in Miami. They never play well against Buffalo. They never play well against. Maybe they can steal one in New England somewhere like they usually do. But a lot of these teams, they just don't play well against, and they're just not ready for it. And again, I don't think they're going to be able to stay healthy all year long at those key positions. I'm not saying Zach Wilson's, not somebody who can stay healthy, but this is not an easy thing. If he's not ready to come back, after saying, "Oh, we're gonna look at it," he could start week 1, and then all of a sudden it's week 4, and like you said, Rabbi, it wasn't. Yeah, we're going to be cautious. He's not really ready this week. We don't think we can get enough days of practice in with him, so we're going to let Flacco start, and then we'll look at. They didn't say that. They said week 4. So
that just
what, you know,
that just goes to me like it's like to compare it to the NBA. It's like an NBA general manager saying, "We're going to keep these draft picks and wait for this." I'm like, no, you can't, because this is a reason why this is now the not for long league, because you can't basically force ourselves to go to another project for another year. I will say this one thing before we move on to around the NFL. The second half is a lot easier. You have Chicago at home, you have Detroit at home, you have Jacksonville at home, you have Seattle on the road. If this team is anywhere near 4-5, and that's going to be have to take a miracle through those first 9. I wouldn't say miracle, but you have to have almost everything break right for those first 9 weeks. Then Jets fans can start talking about the 7th seed. But until then, door closed.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to around the NFL. We have 2 segments for you this evening on it. We'll start with wide receivers moving teams. 2002's offseason was the year of the wide receiver, as we had around the NFL. We're going to take a look at 4 of the, at least in my choice, I don't know if he's like a superstar wideout, so we'll just say capable wideouts. But guys, don't be dumbfounded when you see Christian Kirk on the Jaguars in week 1 and thinking he was a Cardinal for like 17 years. He's there now. But we're going to start with the most notable change in the offseason, Anthony, and that's Tyreek Hill going from the greatest show in Kansas City to the most mediocre show and the most mediocre quarterback that you could find in Tua Tagovailoa in Miami.
Yeah, but Tyreek Hill, I'm going to sell because of the quarterback.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to buy, sell, or hold all of these things, by the way, too. So it's basically, do we like the future? Do we not like the future, which Anthony is saying? Or we need to basically see more work?
Yeah, I'm going to sell Tyreek Hill. Look, I'm happy for him. He gets to go to better weather. He gets his money. But he's going to be, if Patrick Mahomes doesn't make you happy, Tua Tagovailoa is going to make you even more frustrated, to say the least. And look, Tagovailoa, it's showing that there's a difference between playing the National Football League and lighting it up on a given Saturday for the University of Alabama. And look, this is a Dolphin team that got busted for tampering when it came to Tom Brady. They tried to trade for my mind went blank for a second. But Deshaun Watson, sorry about that. So obviously the Miami Dolphins kind of like, okay, they paraded around, they tried to feel, and now it's time to go back to Bay, which is Tagovailoa, and basically try to make things work. But the thing is, his numbers, he's been inconsistent the last couple of years. You think about his first year, where he was like a starting pitcher, and the games he started, only for Ryan Fitzpatrick to come in and play the fourth quarter because you couldn't get the ball downfield, and he had a hard time completing out routes. And then last year, he had actually a higher completion percentage than Patrick Mahomes, but a lot of dink and dunk and RPOs. That's exactly make things great when you're only averaging less than 7 yards per reception. Now he's been working with trainers and working with coaching staff on his arm strength through the off season. And the thing is, though, when you think about the Dolphins spending a lot of money on the offensive line, bringing in Tyreek Hill to go with Jalen Waddle, who somehow managed to get over 1,000 yards, despite the fact that Tagovailoa barely threw the ball downfield. I think he was near the bottom of the league in passes beyond 25 yards. They're trying to open up the offense a little bit, but it's still the quarterback. Like I'm still not convinced that Tagovailoa has the arm strength to just fling the ball downfield. Now there's a difference defensively when it comes to Tyreek Hill when you have to worry about Patrick Mahomes being able to do everything on the fly and his ability to run and pick up yards, as opposed to Tagovailoa being a traditional pocket passer and not being a threat to get out of the backfield. And even shown the last couple of years that when things don't go according to script, that he has struggled. So it's going to be a huge step down as far as production for Tyreek Hill. Like I said, he's got his money. I'm happy for him. He gets to lay out. He gets to spend plenty of time on South Beach. But as far as seeing the numbers he saw in Kansas City, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, Waddle, for as good as for as many catches he had over 100 catches, which did set the rookie record. he barely cracked 1,000 yards because the offense was so limited, and because it was the quarterback, you had to basically play call around talking about his limitations. So to try to open a playbook now, and you haven't addressed the fact that Tua doesn't have the arm strength to fling the ball downfield, or maybe you don't have the time to get it down there, it kind of negates having a speedy guy like Tyreek Hill running down 30, 40 yards. I mean, you're hoping he can maybe break a 5-yard and go yard after catch, but the way I see it this year, he's going to be doing a lot of 40-yard sprints for nothing, because I don't see him getting near the production he had with Mahomes at quarterback.
Let me say this, though. First of all, I do think Tua does get a bad rap a lot because of the injury history that he's had. He has never really been a fully healthy quarterback. So that's number one. Number two, I like the combo of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But again, I like the combo. I don't necessarily like the team entirely. I don't think they're challenging Buffalo, but they were 9-7 last year. So I don't think they're taking a step back, but I don't think they're taking a step forward either. Speaking of teams that might be taking a step forward, and the quarterbacks wide receivers who lost their best buddy division. Well, technically, if you're Devontae Adams, he was never really a best buddy of Aaron Rodgers. Devontae goes from Green Bay to Las Vegas, and Devontae really does get reunited with one of his best friends and his college teammate, Derek Carr. Jay, buy, sell, or hold the future of Mr. Adams?
I'm buying, Anthony, like you, I'm selling on Tyreek Hill. As I've said since day one, Tyreek, enjoy your paycheck, because that's the only thing you're going to enjoy playing football for the Dolphins. I mean, the price the Raiders paid sending their 2022 first and second round picks to the Packers was absolutely worth it for the guy who's arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, did any wide receiver have a better offseason than Adams? Not only did the East Palo Alto native wind up with the team he rooted for as a kid, he also, as Rabbi said, reunited with his BFF and Fresno State teammate quarterback Derek Carr. Adams called it a dream come true. And, he also got paid. NFL Network and ESPN reported that Adams' contract with the Raiders is a 5-year, $141.25 million deal with $66 million guaranteed, and those dollars are only in the first 3 years of the contract. That's an annual average value of $28.25 million per year, which is just above what DeAndre Hopkins got from the Cardinals. No other wide receiver is currently getting paid more than $20.025 million per year. And to talk about the reunion with Carr, in the 2 seasons they played together at Fresno State, Adams put up 233 receptions, 3,131 yards, 38 touchdowns. He led the FBS in receptions, yards, and TDs. Carr led the FBS in passing yards and passing TDs. They led Fresno State to the win in the inaugural MWC championship game. And since getting drafted in 2014, Adams ranks 5th in the NFL in receptions with 669, 6th in receiving yards was 8,121, and 2nd in receiving TDs with 73. First team All-Pro in 20 and 21. First in the NFL in receptions, 2nd in yards, and 1st in TDs across those 2 All-Pro years. And last season, he became just the 6th player in NFL history to record 120 catches, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns in a season. He checks every box you can possibly have for a number 1 wideout. He regularly beats double coverage, is excellent at gaining yards after the catch, and he's a threat at all 3 areas of the field, short, intermediate, and deep. And he can line up at X, Z, or the slot and do major damage from each position. This gives the Raiders the ability to hunt matchups against whichever opponent's back 7 defensive position is weakest in coverage. Slot corner, outside corner, linebackers, or safeties. And once the Raiders get into the red zone, this is where he's really going to earn his paycheck. Last year, the Raiders were 29th in red zone efficiency, and their inability to convert red zone opportunities into touchdowns is why their season ended in a wild card loss to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. In the past 2 seasons, Adams leads the NFL in red zone touchdowns with 24, and it doesn't matter whether defenders go standard man or press coverage on him. He's virtually uncoverable. Next gen stats have him with a 98 in the 98th percentile in terms of success rate against man coverage, 99th against press. And if teams want to double team, great. Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller will abuse their one-on-one opportunities in the red zone. Now, Carr has had more team success when he's had a true wide receiver one that he fully trusted. And he really hasn't had one since Michael Crabtree, who finished third in the MVP voting in 2016. And the team went 12-3 in the 15 games that Carr played. Now, that's no disrespect to Renfro or Waller, who Carr has developed great chemistry with. Waller has been wrecking havoc of the last 3 years. When you add Adams to that, a guy he already has trust and chemistry with, a Raiders offense that finished 10th in scoring in 2020 and then dropped to 18th last year, now has the potential to be a top 5-10 unit, as they now have one of the best set of skill position players in the NFL when you include running backs Josh Jacob and Kenyon Drake, and one of the most successful offensive play callers in league history in new head coach Josh McDaniels at the controls. Guys, defensive coordinators have nightmares about offenses like this.
The only problem is that whole division is basically defensive coordinator nightmares. And
that's true.
For each 30 points that the Las Vegas Raiders score, their opponents in that division can go for 37 or 38. Yeah. The one thing that I'm shocked that no one has mentioned yet is Josh McDaniels as a head coach is just so up in the air for me. I think he'll be able to use his offensive set as much as he possibly can. But again, you're in a division where every game is going to be a dogfight. And I don't know if the dog I want in that fight is Josh McDaniels. However, big buy here. Absolutely. I think I agree with all of your points, Jay. Rarely have agreed with you tonight, but this time. Okay. I'm going to talk about Hollywood Brown of the moving from Baltimore to Arizona. Did that on trade night. We actually didn't even mention A.J. Brown, who's moving to Philadelphia this year. And, oh, God, I'm scared. That is a buy all the way, but we could talk about that another time as the season goes on. Reason I want to talk about Hollywood Brown is his importance is going to be much more important than anybody else. By the way, I'm holding on him. Here's why. Because even though Brown last year had 7 touchdowns of 40 yards or longer and had a career high in receptions in 91 and receiving yards in 1008, the man is still very unreliable when it comes to grabbing the ball. He is one of the more drop-prone receivers in the entire league, and Lamar is still pretty accurate when it comes to those balls to Hollywood Brown. He always ended up getting that deep ball to Hollywood Brown. Brown left in the offseason in a little bit of a surprise draft day move to Arizona to really become DeAndre Hopkins' number 2 wide receiver. But the only problem is Hopkins just got suspended for PEDs for 6 games. Didn't just get suspended. It happened earlier this summer. So he's going to kind of have to take the load as the number 1 wide receiver on this team. Yes, you have A.J. Green, who almost went for 1,000 yards yesterday, but A.J. Green's best years are behind him. And yes, you have Rondale Moore, who's going to probably make a big leap in year 2, but he's still not really there yet. But Brown's chemistry with his also former college teammate and Kyler Murray from Oklahoma is going to be a big help on the field. Remember, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow were college teammates, and how did that work out for the Cincinnati Bengals last year? Pretty good. But he has to be the leader of this team through the first 6 weeks, and he has to kind of be a 1B, because the Arizona Cardinals have always gotten to good starts to start off the season, and you don't get any tougher than Kansas City at home, at Las Vegas, and Los Angeles at home in weeks 1, 2, and 3. It gets a little better going at Carolina versus Philadelphia and at Seattle. And then when you get to October 20th, week 7, Hopkins will be back. But you need somebody like Brown to kind of consistently move you down the field. And let's be fair, Arizona is going to need offense to beat LA, and Arizona is going to need everything to beat San Francisco. And then when Hopkins comes back later in the season, the one thing that Arizona hasn't done these last few years is really finish well. They were the best team in the league by most metrics through 9 weeks of the season, and they ended up not even winning their division, ended up, as Joe saw, pretty much getting embarrassed by the Los Angeles Rams in the wild card round. Kyler Murray didn't even look like an NFL quarterback. But the biggest difference is I do believe Kyler Murray is still a pretty good NFL quarterback when you put no pressure on him. And there are no expectations on him in those first 6 weeks of the season because he's going to be behind the 8 ball. But somebody like Hollywood Brown can be the deep threat that he needs to kind of keep everything going. It is a mild hold for Hollywood Brown, but
mild hold
for Hollywood Brown, but it is a hold. I'm not as negative in here being a sell, but this could very well easily be a sell. Also, the guy has had some off-field issues as well, but I don't think they're going to be taken care of in those first 6 weeks, which is really the most important. All right, Joe, let's talk about Allen Robinson. A very, very under-the-radar trade. He goes from the dumpster fire known as the Chicago Bears to the reigning Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, and he is really the number 2 wideout on this team. And honestly, I know you're a buy on this. One of the most underrated signings of the offseason.
Yeah, I'm a buy on it more because of the team that he's going to and the way they seem to handle their players. And especially after they did win the Super Bowl, it's even more of a do it our way type of a place. The way that Sean McVay was able to handle Odell Beckham last year, immediately Robert Woods gets hurt the same week. Odell comes in, and again, if you watched some of those games, and again, I do watch a lot of the Rams games. If you watch those games, the interaction there where Odell thought he would be running on the field on 3rd down, and McVay would call him back, and it's like, you play when I tell you to play, you do what I ask you to do, and I'll make you good. And in his offense, and he did that. So I think Robinson is walking into a perfect spot. He's going to know what his job is. He knows who the number 1 guy is, the guy who's the MVP of the Super Bowl. And you are here to do this job and we're going to get you open when it's your turn to get open. You're going to run your route. You're not going to play every down. You're going to do that. You're going to do what we tell you to do. And again, coming from the guys who just won the Super Bowl, even the defensive guys make sure you're in line with what we do here. It's the Ram way of doing things. They've certainly come up with their plan for winning in LA. They have no draft picks for 5 or 6 years. Doesn't matter. They go out, they get players, they develop who they have to, they pick up who they have to. They get running backs that walk in and play great because their offensive line is good. So I think that the team will be not as successful as it was last year, but I think that he's an easy pickup. He's not a diva. And again, McVay will have ways to make him successful. And I think that going on the opposite side of Cooper Kupp only makes you better. So I think that it's a big win for them and a big win for him to be able to get the hell out of Chicago and go play in LA.
I can't wait to see what the next year of Cooper Kupp is going to be. And I think Robinson kind of is the key to everything, because it is really Van Jefferson, and then there's not a lot of depth in that wide receiver core after that. You do have a Tyler Higbee at tight end, but the offense is a little bit different, and they're also going to need to run the ball this year a lot more, because Kupp can't have a year that he had in 2021. It's physically impossible, I think, by metrics. And all right. 2021 was year 2 of the expanded 14-team playoff system, and so we can actually measure what the difference was from year to year for the first time. Half of those teams that made the playoffs in 2021 were not there in 2020, as they made the Pro Football Championship dance. We will now be soothsayers, so to speak, and we'll summon. No, we're just going to summon 4 teams. We need to get out of here eventually. We're going to have one in each league, one to make the playoffs who wasn't there in 2021, and vice versa, 2 to make the dance that weren't there. So 1 to make the playoffs that wasn't there, 1 to miss the playoffs that was there. So we will start with Anthony. Give me a 2021 AFC playoff team that will not make it this season, and then Jay and me might have a little something to say about that. Yes, I'm agreeing with Jay on something for once.
Oh, man. For the second time tonight.
Second time, shocking.
Man, somebody call Ripley's, because I sure as hell don't believe it.
It's a rarity.
Yeah. I hate to do it to you, Jay, but it's gonna have to be your Steelers on this one. Look, they got in. Man. Yeah, they got in the final, literally the last game of the season. We're talking about the Sunday night game between the Raiders and the Chargers, where the Chargers decided that playing for a tie and calling a timeout was a good idea. But you look at the Steelers, and this is the first time since 2004 they're going to have a star quarterback not named Ben Roethlisberger taking over the reins, and maybe Mitchell Trubisky at the very least starting this season. But I mean, I think we all know he's going to be more of a placeholder until Kenny Pickett is ready to take the reins at some point. Look at the weapons, though. They're still going to have Najee Harris coming back after a 1,000-yard season. The wide receiver core is good. I mean, you think about Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, which got a lot of ratings in the preseason. And then Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, the tight end that feels a lot. He feels a lot more like Heath Miller when you look at the role he plays offensively. The offensive line, James Daniels and Mason Cole was added to kind of try to revamp an offensive line that had struggled last season. And of course, defensively, you had T.J. Watt. But the thing with the Steelers defensively is the fact that while yes, they've been in the top 5 in sacks, the turnovers they forced last season was dramatically down from previous years. And that was a big thing. And also the secondary did give up a lot of big plays and chunks. So a lot
of turnover in that unit there.
Yeah, there's a lot, and obviously Michael Fitzpatrick after that first year when he was sensational in 2019, the last few years, his production and his numbers has dipped as well. But I mean, I never want to count the Steelers out, and obviously Jay, you know this because it's your team, because Mike Tomlin is just that good of a coach, and he just gets get the most out of what he has in the playoffs. But I look at the AFC West, and just like a motor's flow in that division and the North, it's just as good.
Well, I was looking at the West first, really, because that could be a wild card team league.
I mean, Ant, I agree with you. I don't know. I mean, maybe the AFC North gets 2 teams if Baltimore is, best case scenario for Baltimore happens. I mean, obviously the division goes through Cincinnati, and how weird is it to say that after all these years? But I like George Pickens, the rookie wide receiver. He's kind of pleasantly surprised everybody with the breadth of his skill set. They are tweaking the defensive scheme with Austin and Flores to kind of put Minka back in a position where he can be more of a center fielder playmaker type. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I mean, it's just as with everything, it's a question of, will the offensive line give whoever is taking the snaps enough time to throw? And, God forbid anything happens to TJ Watt.
Yeah, you're going to be 5-12 if anything happens to TJ. I actually do think Pittsburgh is going to be fine. I think Trubisky needs to be a guy who does kind of what Ben did a lot last season, except for the long passes, and be a good game manager. You're not losing as much as you think in that position. He's more mobile
than Roethlisberger, which Tomlin likes. So
but he has to kind of play the Pittsburgh system. Yeah, offensive line is going to be a key. Yep. Honestly, I know I'm not answering this question, but I would have gone one spot ahead of them because I believe the New England hatred that everyone's giving them is very, very real. I mean, Joe knows if you're going with a combination of Matt Patricia and Joe Judge calling plays, you may want to just stop right there. All right, Jay, we know you have loved this Matt Ryan move. Really on multiple shows, and you think the Colts are going to make the playoffs this season after not making it in 2021?
And I think improved quarterback play is going to be one, if not the key reasons for the Colts were 1 win away from making the playoffs last year, and they lost 26-11 to a Jacksonville team that had 2 wins to that point. Those are the type of games where you need your quarterback to step up and play big. So what happens? Carson Wentz goes 17 for 29 for a meager 185 yards. That's only 6.4 yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He was sacked 6 times and produced a 74.6% passer rating for that game. That's not getting it done. Not if you're playing for an owner like Jim Irsay, who is used to the likes of Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and even Phillip Rivers under center. So when Wentz gets shown the door, and the Colts send a 3rd-round pick to the Falcons for 14-year veteran Matt Ryan, whose resume includes 4 Pro Bowls, 1 MVP award, and he's the number 8 passer in NFL history. Now, on the surface, based on what Ryan did last year in Atlanta, you might think it would seem to be an odd move for the Colts. Yeah, he completed 67% of his passes. He's always been accurate. His yards per attempt was only 7.1. His 3,968 yards were his lowest since 2010 and broke a 10-year streak of 4,000-plus yard seasons. His 20 TDs were his lowest since 2017. His 12 interceptions were right his career average. He ranked 24th in True Media's expected points added per play metric, and he was 21st in Football Outsiders DVOA metric. Doesn't seem like much of an upgrade, right? You might think that maybe the 37-year-old Ryan is starting to decline. Well, if you watched any tape on the Falcons, you'd understand. That offense was, to put it mildly, offensive. 31st in rushing efficiency, 26th in pass block win rate, 32nd in pressure rate. And Ryan's top targets, do you guys know these wide receiver names? Russell Gage, Cordarrelle Patterson, two guys who, in my opinion, scare absolutely zero defensive coordinators. Yeah, rookie tight end Kyle Pitts out of Florida put up a Pro Bowl season as a rookie, 68 catches for over 1,000 yards, 15 per catch. But overall, it wasn't a great situation for any quarterback, and Ryan did his best to make lemonade out of the lemons he was given. And yet, here's what I found interesting when I was digging into the research for this segment. Even with a vastly inferior set of skilled position players around him as compared to what the Colts had for Wentz last year, Ryan posted a higher completion percentage, higher yards per attempt, and the Falcons receivers had more yards after a catch, which is as much a quarterback stat as it is a receiver stat, than Wentz and the Colts did. Take that one step further. Next Gen Stats uses tracking data to look at the probability of a completion on every throw based on factors like distance, receiver separation, pressure, etc. Then compares a quarterback's expected completion percentage to his actual. Ryan, 10th in completion percentage above expectation. Wentz was 26th. Colt head coach Frank Reich, who spent 13 years as an NFL quarterback, knows a little bit about the position, looked at the last 3 seasons of film on the 2 types of throws that will tell if a quarterback has lost any miles per hour off his fastball. One's longer than 40 yards and one's outside the numbers. Reich saw nothing to indicate that Ryan had lost any of his arm strength or his ability to put the ball where it needs to go. With the Colts, I think Ryan obviously, he'll have a much better offensive line, and his ability to get the ball out quickly, a skill Wentz lacked, should improve on last season's ranking for the Colts in pass block win rate, where they were 20th, and pressure rate, where they were 23rd. He'll have the NFL's second most efficient running game, led by running back Jonathan Taylor, who led the league with over 1,800 yards on the ground, over 5 yards a carry, and 18 scores. He'll also have a better defense than he had in Atlanta, and that unit just upgraded itself with 5-time Pro Bowler Stephon Gilmore. They were the NFL's 9th-ranked scoring defense year, even before they got him. Colts wide receiver core, here's the wild card for them. The wide receiver core is very young, and outside of Michael Pittman is bigger on potential than production, but still a better situation than Ryan had in Atlanta. Colts have high hopes for the youngsters, Paris Campbell, Ashton Dulin, Michael Strachan, and Desmond Patman, all of whom are younger than 25, as is Pittman. The belief here is that Ryan will help turn that potential into production. He's taken a very hands-on approach with them, drilling them on details. And, it's not just Ryan they get to learn from. They also brought in Reggie Wayne, one of the greatest wide receivers in franchise history, to be their position coach. School's been in session since OTAs. And as Pittman put it, quote, last year we were kind of just out there running the plays, but we were basically just playing football. I mean, we would just run around and make plays. This year, we're trying to be organized, be at our spots and in our depths, because that's how Matt likes it, how he commands it, and that's what he expects. So you better be there. The Colts were one of the unluckiest teams in the NFL last year. They had the 7th best point differential, but somehow only went 9-8. They lost 5 of their 7 one-score games, and that was probably a big reason why. When you're constantly playing tight games, you need a quarterback who will make the right decisions with the ball and put your playmakers in position to make the plays that will win those tight games. Matt Ryan will give the Colts that type of quarterback play this season, and it'll be the biggest reason they not only make the playoffs, but will contend for the AFC South title.
I think that's the only way they can make the playoffs, honestly, in that AFC. The big difference is, by the way, going from Carson Wentz to Matt Ryan is like going from a 79 beat up Chevy to a nice 2013 Infinity. I think it's a big difference in that quarterback play. And again, 9-8 with Carson Wentz's quarterback last year. And I think this team has a lot of talent. I would expect them possibly to do more than win the AFC South, because they have a division that's ripe to be 5-1 city.
Oh yeah.
Because I am so off of the Titans bandwagon, and I think
agreed.
I think the Colts are going to be an easy division winner, but you know how my predictions go. Okay. Yeah. I hope this prediction goes true, and that is that the Dallas Cowboys will be the NFC team that misses the playoffs this year. Dallas actually has no, I'm not just a hater. But betting public actually has agreed Dallas going into June and July.
I agree with you on your pick, Rabbi, but we all know you're not a fan of the Cowboys.
I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, but I do, and they are always, I think, just because of that damn star, they're always one of the most overhyped teams out there. Their talent is there, and their drafting has actually been there over the last few years, but they're a team that has crumbled off the weight of expectations. Now, last year they went 12-5 and made an early round exit after Dak Prescott couldn't get a last play going against the 49ers, but it wasn't just about that. The 49ers played a very good game and actually showed offensive speed against what was a tired Dallas team going into that game. And you would think Dallas would improve from that this season, but they did absolutely nothing in the off season. And even if they were to bring back that same exact team in 2022, you're not going to see a Trayvon Diggs 11 interception season again. That just doesn't happen. This is a team that kind of missed the boat, and they're going to kind of watch that boat go more towards Philly and Giants Island in 2022. Dallas also lost Randy Gregory, who was their second leader in sacks and quarterback hits. He went to Denver. And the guy who replaced him has fewer hits on the quarterback in the past 2 seasons combined than Gregory had just last year. Amari Cooper, their top wideout, is now in Cleveland. Sorry, Amari. But CeeDee Lamb is going to be a good number one player. But the problem is he's never been a number one player before. And his job really was to be a distraction to Amari Cooper. I don't know if CeeDee Lamb could put up the best numbers. And it's hard for Michael Gallup to even just stay on the field. The only thing I like about this team is the 1-2 punch of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Has Zeke declined over the last 2 years? Yeah. You put a running back in and you get the miles on him, that's always going to happen. But I do think Zeke has still been pretty reliable, and most of the time he's been pretty healthy. But this team also lost Tyron Smith to an avulsion fracture of the knee. He will probably be gone for the rest of the season. If he comes back for the final 4 or 5 games in December. I don't know if that's going to matter. And last year, this team was mismanaged like crazy by Mike McCarthy. Time mismanagement, discipline mismanagement. And honestly, at a lot of the times last year, Mike McCarthy looked like a babysitter more than he looked like he was a head coach. And nothing has really changed in the preseason this year. They're still one of the league's most penalized teams. I don't think that seems to be news. McCarthy had some terrible years to finish off in Green Bay. He had losing seasons for 3 consecutive years before getting over to Dallas when he had kind of lucked into this 12-5 team. I think there are teams in this conference that are better than them, and I don't see a playoff spot for this team this year. In fact, I would not be surprised if this team is an under 500 team this year. The fall of Dallas is about to start. All right, Joe, let's talk about the NFC. Let's talk positive and talk about the NFC team that you think is going to get in that missed it last year.
So I took a little different tact on this and figured that, if we're going to, like you picked Dallas not to make it. Well, that means either the Eagles or the Giants have to make it because that's where someone's got to win that division. So, and we know it's not going to be Washington. So I started to think that way, but I couldn't really come up with which one of those I would favor. I think they both have some flaws in it, so I couldn't figure that one out. But then I looked at the reason Tom Brady came back is that the NFC South is just a disaster at this point. With Ryan leaving and picking on Marcus Mariota as the starting quarterback in Atlanta, having Jameis Winston go back to New Orleans, there's just this, and Carolina just being a disaster. Again, talk about enjoy your paycheck. Matt Rule got all that money to do absolutely nothing. He's the next one that'll be gone. When you trade for Sam Darnold, you're on your way out the door. So I just look at that NFC South and you go, there's nothing there. So I picked New Orleans to be the team that has a little continuity. They lost their head coach, but the guy taking over has been there forever. They had already had their quarterback leave and had other guys in there to play. So it's not like Peyton walked out at the end of the season and he walked out with Drew Brees and they cleaned house and they have nothing. the guy who's still calling the plays, the same guy who's calling the plays. The guys on defense are there's a little bit of continuity there. And I think Jameis Winston has some talent that he's not going to be as bad as he was in Tampa Bay because, again, that's hard to do, to throw 30 interceptions and throw 50 touchdowns.
The 30-30 club, not one club that you want to be a part of.
Exactly. So
that kind of 30-30 anyway.
I don't think that that's going to happen again. And I think that the play calling's better, and I think that there'll be a little bit more. But if you look at that competition, there's nothing there. The thing with Brady and Tampa is how many times can you expect to bring the same guys back and win when those guys are older, those guys are going to get hurt. There's different, that doesn't work in football because of injuries, because of guys getting older, guys having career years that can't repeat those career years as we talked about. So I think, as we said, he should have left 2 years ago, came back last year and lost. He's going to come back this year and not practice because I only have a brand new head coach. Why should I show up for practice and show him any respect? So I think that whole thing blows up in their face. I think Atlanta's a disaster with Marcus Mariota. I think Carolina's a disaster. So by process of elimination, I got New Orleans winning that division and therefore getting into playoffs and not really going anywhere. But I think they have the most continuity from their ownership, that they kept certain people on the staff and they made some good choices there. And, can Kamara come back from his personal issues and play well? I think he can. So I would say that they're the team that would win that division and therefore make the playoffs.
I got to agree with you on that, Joe. And the thing that I find most intriguing, and I think is Michael Thomas healthy?
Right.
If he is, then I think Jameis Winston will play better because he has him out there,
right?
And then if he doesn't. So that to me is going to be a big thing. Is Michael Thomas healthy, and can they keep him on the field for all 17 games?
Two things that I want to mention. Three things I want to mention before we get to predictions. Chris Olave is going to be a big help too for Jameis Winston, big target, because I don't know what Thomas's future is going to be. And also the fact that instead of Taysom Hill as the backup quarterback this year, they got Andy Dalton as a backup quarterback. So that is a very huge plus in that department. By the way, I know they've been a very trendy pick, but the more I look at it, Minnesota is also a good choice in this category. Cousins has been unspectacular but reliable, and I think the wide receivers that this team brings back, including, by my money, probably if Cooper Kupp is number one in wide receivers, Justin Jefferson is 1B and Jamar Chase is 1C. That's how good those two players are. I just got kicked off for a second there. Thank God. What I was going to say is watch out for Minnesota. They have a very good Cousins is a very unspectacular quarterback at times, but he just continuously puts up numbers. He's a perfect quarterback for an offense that has, as I said before, if Cooper Kupp is the best wide receiver in the league, which I think he is, but if you think there's other people, 1B would be Jamar Chase and 1C would be Justin Jefferson. And having Dalvin Cook in that running game, if he stays healthy. Minnesota plays Green Bay week 1. That's going to be a very interesting matchup and a game where first to 50 maybe wins that game. Who the hell knows? All right. So every single year,
I got to tell you, I like the fact that Cousins finally, gets an offensive-minded head coach.
Yeah. That's a big thing too. Having O'Connell from the Rams.
O'Connell. Yep. And a guy he's a former quarterback.
And Sean McVay's coaching tree, nothing has gone wrong off of that tree so far. So, although Brandon Staley, I have a lot of questions about him, but we can always. We have a lot of questions. I said the whole coaching tree, so he qualifies in that. Unfortunately, I have a lot of questions about him. Okay, so last year, me and Jay actually agreed on the NFC champion Rams and Kansas City. We were one overtime from getting a complete Super Bowl correct. We got at least the NFC representative and the Super Bowl champion. Joe, you live in LA and you picked Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs.
I'm going to do it
What
again.
is wrong with you? Okay.
Yep. I don't live in LA. I didn't choose to live in LA.
You live near LA. You see them.
Yeah, sort of.
Got to give you against that, although.
You live near the Jets.
Yeah, and I still put my money on Washington as the worst team in the NFL. That'll probably go against me. All right, NFC winner, AFC winner. We don't have to mention who wins the Super Bowl. Who's going to make it to Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Arizona, a place that has had a nice little bit of history in Super Bowls. David Tyree catch. The Marshawn Lynch should have run the ball from the 2-yard line play, but a lot of history. Who's going to Super Bowl 57? Joe, give me an AFC and NFC winner.
Oh, I got Buffalo and Green Bay.
All right. Jay's going to be a little more descriptive, and he might take a few minutes, but he'll give us.
I am. I got a little. I got a little sound.
You asked me to take 2 teams.
No, that's fine. I mean, it was what is on there. I'm just going by what is on this little thing here. So
yeah, and you know what, Joe, I can appreciate your succinctness because we know how you hate making predictions on this show anyway. So all good, man. AFC champ, I'm going with Buffalo. I mean, the Super Bowl losers rarely make it back the next year, so I'm not inclined to pick the Bengals. Do I do think they will get back to the playoffs? The Chiefs are always a contender, and I like the upgrades they made on both sides of the ball through the draft and free agency. Their schedule is one of the tougher ones, 5th toughest overall, 2nd toughest in the AFC behind the Bengals. And each team in the AFC West got better to the point where it may be the toughest division in the NFL. Can't say the same for the AFC East. I don't see the Dolphins or the Jets challenging the Bills, and the Patriots could, as Rabbi alluded to, very easily take a step backwards. And I like him. I don't underestimate the effect of the loss of Josh Daniels will have on the Patriots offense overall, and Mac Jones's development specifically. Like the Rabbi, I have zero faith in Joe Judge and Matt Patricia as play callers or game planners on that side of the ball. And you know what, Rabbi, the Bills have Josh Allen, and frankly, I think it's their time. Jim Kelly has been suffering long enough. NFC, I'm going with the Rams. I know that Super Bowl repeats are a rare thing these days, and I know that the Rams have far and away the toughest strength of schedule in the NFL. Their opponents had a .567 winning percentage last season. But whether that remains so will rest largely on how the rest of the NFC West shakes out. And with only the Cardinals having anything close to certainty at the quarterback position, that division may not be as tough as it was last season. If the Rams beat Buffalo on opening night, they could potentially be 7-0 by the time their next big test shows up in the form of a road game against Brady and the Bucs. Sean McVay's squad returns almost all the key players from their Super Bowl win, led by quarterback Matthew Stafford, wide receiver Cooper Kupp, defensive tackle Aaron Donald, defensive back Jalen Ramsey. And I like the offseason pickups of wide receiver Allen Robinson, as Joe talked about earlier, and linebacker Bobby Wagner. I think all of that is why the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC still goes through SoFi Stadium.
I am shocked that you think that the Rams can easily beat San Francisco twice in the beginning of the year and get to 7-0, because even if like Anthony is playing quarterback for San Francisco, those games would be very, very tough.
Hey, look, I said potentially.
It's potentially, but I like that. I like the pick though. It's a good pick.
Rabbi, I'm looking at San Francisco's schedule. Oh yeah, you're right. They have the Rams twice.
They play the Rams twice. Really weird having them first.
Yeah, that is weird. Okay, so it's possible.
No, I understand. I do want to mention something.
Trey Lance is an uncertainty at quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's going to be a very interesting storyline. And I don't think I'm not going to talk about that because I know we're going to get to it during the season because I think they're going to be a team to watch. Anthony, who are your picks?
He mentioned Jay mentioned Jim Kelly. I just happen to have the Buffalo Bills 30 for 30 play in the background. I picked the Bills last year to get to the Super Bowl, and granted, they were a coin toss away from getting to the AFC Championship game. I do think this is the time that Josh Allen is in that class of elite quarterbacks. I think he finally gets over the hump, and the Bills get back to the Super Bowl. The NFC, I'm going with the 49ers because I think Trey Lance is a step up at quarterback. You did back to that NFC Championship game against the Rams. Even if they have a both competent quarterback play in the fourth quarter, maybe it's the 49ers in the Super Bowl playing the Bengals, not the Rams. And it just shows you just how limited and just how much the 49ers were able to do in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo in the postseason. I think Trey Lance, with a better arm and ability to run, and his ability to get out of pocket and run, which also adds more dynamic to the offense, is going to help an offense that's already creative. You already have Deebo Samuel at wideout. I mean, and you still have that defense. I do think it's the 49ers come out in the NFC. It's hard to see the Rams get back to the Super Bowl. I don't have much faith in Aaron Rodgers when it comes to the playoffs for a thousand reasons that have nothing to do with the woke media, but there's a reason for that. And also, I just think the NFC South is pretty weak, even with Tom Brady coming back to Tampa, the NFC East. The NFC East is the NFC East. I think we all know that for a fact. But I do think the 49ers, with the defense they have, the offense, and obviously, I never underestimated Kyle Shanahan's ability to be very creative with play calling. And now that you have a quarterback who has an arm, who has the more athletic ability that can make his offensive system really work. I'm going with the 49ers to come out of the NFC, and it'd be Bills and 49ers for my pick.
Oh, it's the Chris Berman special, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
49ers. Okay. So in the AFC, I am not going to make it 4 for 4. I think Buffalo has been way too trendy of a pick in this league, in this conference. And I do think, I mentioned the Cowboys earlier. I think their window has come and gone. I don't think the Bills' window has come and gone, but their best chance was, as Anthony said, a coin flip away against Kansas City. But let's be completely honest. The Bills just unraveled in that game defensively. They were a kickoff away too, a script kickoff away too. But the Bills are not as mentally tough as a team as I think that they should be. Remember, we all are singing this team's praises because of last season. And remember, they lost to Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars 9-6 during the season last year. 9-6. So I'm worried that the Buffalo Bills just won't be able to get through adversity. And again, it's tough for a team who has just been at the door, especially these last 2 years, to knock through. And I don't know if they're going to have that breakthrough moment. The schedule is going to be tougher. And I don't know if this team is just ready yet. I think I think they could easily be at the Super Bowl, obviously, but I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. I kind of like this team a lot. They're not the favorites in the AFC North, shockingly enough. That's Baltimore. But I think it makes no sense to me because I think they're overvaluing the fact that Lamar was gone for the last 3 weeks of the year. I think Joe Burrow having a third year and hopefully for his sake, a healthy year again, getting that offensive line into shape because let's be fair, that and it was the main reason why they lost the Super Bowl and could have easily been knocked out of the playoffs before then. I was thinking of all things. I was even thinking Indianapolis for a second, and I was thinking the AFC West. The Chargers are a trendy pick, but I just don't know if they have the mental toughness to win in the end and the coaching to win in the end. And Kansas City is a very good team, but I do think that you're missing Tyreek Hill. You're missing a big portion of your offense and a big play guy. I don't know if Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be that same person. I don't know if Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to be that same person. And we saw some issues with Kansas City last year. Again, I think both conferences are tremendously hard to pick. And you could tell me 5 things and I can change to that at a moment's notice. But I think I'm going to go with a team that is kind of a little bit under the radar in the Cincinnati Bengals. The NFC is a clusterfuck. I'm just going to say it right now. I don't like anybody out of the NFC East. I think the Giants are a playoff team because of the way that schedule kind of breaks out and because I can't think of 6 other teams to make the playoffs. And I think all of this Philly hype as a Super Bowl team is honestly and utterly ridiculous because Jalen Hurts is not a guy who is going to lead your team to a Super Bowl. I'm going to get to the North in a second. The NFC South, Joe has pretty much mentioned it. I would like Carolina if they didn't have Ben McAdoo and Matt Rule on their coaching staff. That kind of tips the scales, and they don't necessarily know if they're a rebuilding team or a team that's willing to contend. Jameis Winston is the New Orleans Saints quarterback. Enough said. And if Tom Brady stays the entire year for Tampa Bay, they'll be fine as a playoff team and a championship contender. I don't think he's staying the whole year. I would put money on it that there will be a different quarterback in Tampa Bay before the end of the season, because it does not look like his heart wants to be there at all. San Francisco, I can't think that Trey Lance is going to light up the world. He'll have his struggles, but there's so much talent around him that could easily be a Super Bowl pick. Just don't know yet. I don't know with Matthew Stafford's shoulder what to expect from the Los Angeles Rams. He's fine, but I know that there's a little bit of wear and tear in him, so I would not be surprised if he missed a few games this season. And I don't necessarily know if the backup is going to do as much. And remember, they were a 4 seed going into the playoffs last year. A lot of things had to break their way to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, very rarely do 4 seeds host an NFC championship game. That doesn't happen often. So, and again, they had Cooper Kupp can't be Cooper Kupp this year. So with that being, he can't be that. He can't be a guy that gets down for 40 yards all the time. It's inhuman what he did last year. He's not putting on that cape again. So process of elimination has me to the NFC North. Chicago is terrible. Detroit is terrible. You got 4 wins right there for Minnesota and Green Bay. In my opinion, Minnesota is going to push Green Bay, because one of the reasons why Green Bay has been so crappy in the playoffs all of these years is they never had any competition during the regular season, and Aaron Rodgers just did not know what to do after that. I know it's a stretch. I know Aaron Rodgers has basically gone off of the deep end. I do know he's taken the peyote during the season before the game, so he's going to be fine going in. I think that's all good. But you know what? Green Bay has talent. Aaron Rodgers has been the back-to-back MVP. I don't expect those skills to erode overnight. Yes, Bakhtiari might be gone in week 2, but again, this team has been a number 1 seed without David Bakhtiari essentially the last 2 years. And sometimes you have to knock at the door 17 times to knock it down. This is not a Buffalo situation. This is a Green Bay finally getting over the hump situation. So my Super Bowl is Cincinnati and Green Bay. So I'm all over the board here. And I wanted to go with Buffalo so bad, but honestly, it's very hard.
Rabbi, you gotta remember, Rabbi, you gotta remember, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Come on.
So if we're gonna do a show in December, I'm going to the Rams-Packers game, Monday Night Football in Lambeau.
Ooh, that's awesome. That's a bucket list right there.
December 19th.
That is going to be a possible game for the 1 seed in that conference.
Yeah.
Man, guys, the NFL is less than 24 hours away.
I'll do a live
from
feed
playing.
if you guys want from outside Lambeau.
As long as the Giants aren't going there this season, I'm a very happy man. Okay, for Joe Tufaro, and again, let's get to our final subject real quickly. Sorry about that. Wow, I keep forgetting. It's weird. So before we get to, leaving for the evening, sorry, I wasn't at that point yet. Let's talk about Kayvon Thibodeau and his Game 2 preseason injury happening on a legal, low, alliterative cut block from the Bengals' Thaddeus Moss. Should this cut block be taken away? Should this cut block, is it time for it to go? Should it stay in the game, or should it be outlawed and need to be fined all the time with, just as Thaddeus's father Randy would say, straight cash, homie? Anthony, you are first. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, very quickly. I was actually at that game when Thibodeau got hurt with that cut block. I think they should I really think they should do something, take it out the game. I mean, you put in all these rules to protect the offensive players, and I do feel like enough has not been done for the defensive side of football. And granted, by rule, it was legal because it was inside the tackle box. But you ask any athlete, the last thing they want to be contacted by is their knees. Like I have bad knees. I've had injuries. It absolutely sucks. But it's even worse when you get taken out in that same area. I mean, you talking about a guy's career that could end just like that in a snap of a dime. Because you get hit with the knee. You ask guys, they don't mind getting hit up high, they don't mind getting hit in the up in the torso area. for any but the knees and below. And I do feel like that's something that the league should address. TJ Watt, by the way, also was simply knocked out of the game the preseason because of a cut block. I think that's something. I think that is something that the league should look into. And also you gotta look at it like this. I mean, you look at some of the hits that defensive players are penalized by. Some of them, it's almost like it's what you do. I mean, I gotta tackle the guy, but in the case of a defensive player being literally helpless when an offensive guy goes after his legs, I mean, the league it's gotta be some balance still, and I think that is something the competition committee we should look at in the offseason as far as not just getting rid of this, but striking a balance as far as where it's okay to hit, where's the line draw as far as trying to pull up incidental contact, which you see plenty of times lead to a 15-yard penalty. So there's a lot of things that have to go into this, but I really do believe that they should take that out of the game.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, what struck me as interesting is that in the wake of that play, the way the Twitterverse blew up about that and the rage that you saw, they're amazing how many people, I mean, we all know this, the number of people who will just, instantly, knee-jerk reaction, and most of them don't know the rule. I mean, even Rich Eisen initially tweeted penalty, hefty fine, suspension, nothing less is acceptable. And he had to kind of like walk that back when he was told what the rule is and that the play is technically legal. It was interesting how the reaction by former players was split down offensive and defensive linemen. You got Marcus Spears on one side raging against it. You got the likes of, Damian Woody, who's an offensive lineman, like what? It's a legal play. Everybody's losing their minds because Thibodeau didn't play it right and he got hit awkwardly and is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. Look, at the end of the day, as long as the play remains legal, then calling it or a player who executes it as dirty is just unfair. That being said, I agree with you guys. It's well past the time that the cut block went the way of the crackback block and gets outlawed by the NFL. If Roger Goodell and the league are truly about trying to make the game safer, then outlawing any and all hits to players' knees is just as crucial as outlawing any and all hits to players' heads. Because in that respect, Marcus Spears is right. Blowing out a player's knee, costing him upwards of a year of his career in a sport where the average length of a pro career is the same as the average length of time you spend in college, approximately 3 to 4 years. It's not good for the game. This needs to, I agree with you, Anthony, 100%. This needs to be put on the competition committee's agenda this offseason, and any and every type of pressure needs to be applied to influence them to officially make this play illegal so that if it's ever executed again in the future, then when you can call the player who does it dirty with a capital D, and it will actually be the truth. Joe, you ref high school games. What's your take on this from a referee standpoint?
Yeah, I think there's couple of things. First of all, isn't it sad that a guy that gets paid to follow the NFL and comment on the NFL doesn't know the rules? First of all, Mr. Eisen, along with a few other guys, that this is your job. Why don't you understand the game?
Yep.
It would be really nice if you would take a class. But the real issue is, first of all, it's very difficult to officiate that group of players because guys that's why it's legal to hit guys in the back. As long as they're in the tackle box, it's legal to hit guys, to clip guys. It's legal to do a lot of things in that box. The problem is in the NFL, that box is too big now. So in high school, our tackle box doesn't extend to the tight end. It's tackle to tackle. And it's 2 yards forward and 2 yards back. In the NFL, it's 5 yards forward and 5 yards back, which made that legal because even though he was coming across, he was a little bit deeper, he could still do that. Now, if he wasn't looking, it would have been a hit on a defenseless player and it would have been a penalty and we would have had that. But he was looking. He needed to get lower. He needed to play it correctly. He has now learned the lesson and he will play it correctly from now on. As we were talking about earlier, this is the things you have to learn when you come into the NFL.
Yep.
So I think if they shrink the tackle box back to the 2 yards either way, again, they don't want to do it because that also affects the illegal man downfield and other rules that go. You got to remember, one thing does kind of pile onto another when you try to make a change. That's why changes come so slow sometimes in the NFL, because it affects 3 or 4 other rules as you go along. If you just make that wording change, that sounds simple. they did a nice job where they got away from the chop block, which is high and low. You can't do it anymore anywhere. You used to be able to do it right away. You still can hit low immediately off the line as long as you're both on the line of scrimmage. So there are a couple of things that they can change about the rule that'll make it a little bit less. Let's just put it this way. The only reason anybody noticed it was because it was out in the open. And of course, the Thibodeau got hurt and he was the number one draft pick. If it was a guard that got hit that way and went out, nobody would ever know about it. And they go, oh yeah, well, that's line play. That's how that is. So, and again, do we want more flags in the game, or do we want the game to continue to play? And that's why it's tough to adjudicate things in that little tight space, because guys are doing everything to each other in that little tight space. And so basically you let it go. Basically it's okay to block guys in the back if everybody started on the line of scrimmage and the ball's still in the zone. And again, being 5 yards back, the ball is always in the zone until it's thrown or until a running back takes it through. So it's not as easy a change as it sounds like it would be. I do agree with you, Jay. It would be nice to get it out of there because of where it happened, because it's out in the middle it's out in open field, basically. Yeah. It wasn't against the guy in front of him, which again, that's still legal in high school. You can still hit the guy low as long as he's directly in front of you and you're both on the line of scrimmage and it's immediate. That would be the better rule, so that you're not having to look for a guy coming down the line of scrimmage from your other side. So I don't think there's a change. I think there's just an adjustment to some of the spacing and where it happens. And again, it's not an easy task to change those things, not because they don't want to. It's just that it starts to affect, as you change the wording of a rule, and you guys know, the rule book has gotten ridiculous. It's 247 pages at this point. Try to find anything in that.
You guys can't have it. You can't be both ways, though. Let's not throw as many flags and let's keep this out of the game. They are, by the way, those two things are not mutually exclusive, which is a very important part to notice there. And I think Joe said it perfectly. It's all about spacing.
Yep. So, all
right.
So that's my take on it. I think there is a discussion to be had. I think the only reason it came up was because of where, the game was on TV, everybody was watching it, and it happened out in the open. We have again, in high school, we have a little bit of an advantage because we don't have replay and we don't have TV for most of the time. But we always tell guys, hey, let's make sure we get the big ones. You call the hold on the tackle that's coming where the guy's rushing and it's one-on-one and he obviously reaches out and grabs the guy. That's out in front of everybody. Everybody saw that hold. That's the one we got to call. The one that's interior line play where maybe the guy gets held for a little bit and then gets let go, you let that go. Because again, we could call it holding on every single play, and that's a true statement.
Yeah.
At every level.
At every level of football. Yeah.
But it's the one, like we always say, the one that's out, got in front of God and everybody. Let's make sure we make that call. And so you wish they could have done something at that point. And as a fan, that's what most people were saying. You wish they could have done something at that point, but because he was looking at the guy, they couldn't have called defenseless. So there really was no. I didn't have a problem with it until I heard about it the next day. I'm like, "What are you guys looking at? It's not a foul." And just because that's just how my mind works, I know what it is, and unfortunately, it's just not a foul. But that's
right. And Joe, talk about the way Thibodeau did not play it. That's in contrast to the way TJ Watt did play it.
Right.
Watt recognized what was coming and he responded like a veteran who has seen that before. Thibodeau probably didn't see too much of that at Oregon, and Moss probably wasn't asked to execute it too much when he was in college 2 years ago. So like you said, both two young players, Thibodeau's going to learn how to play that block properly going forward. And as a defensive end, it's something you have to learn because it's a legal play. You have to understand that it is legal. You're going to see it. You got to learn how to counteract it.
And I think it was Justin Tuck that said it right away on Twitter. He said, kids got to get, he said, dog's got to get lower. He's got to figure out how to fend that off because that's going to be coming at him all the time. So again, it's one of those rule questions that I don't think from my level all the way up, players don't. I don't mind players not knowing all the rules of the game because, like I just said, it's a ridiculous rule book. But like if you're a wide receiver, to come to a couple of years ago and you go, "Oh, I have no idea what a catch is in the NFL." Well, you're a friggin' wide receiver getting paid $20 million for playing the NFL. You can read that section of the rule book.
Right.
You should know exactly what it is.
Yep.
So again, that's the thing that he has to learn, right? What's legal, what's not legal, what's coming, what's not coming, and get better from it.
But Joe, didn't we not learn until like 2019 what a catch was in the NFL, only because it happened a couple of times, including to Jay's Steelers in a game against the New England Patriots with Jesse James, and then it happened at the Super Bowl as well.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
But it's not always what was and wasn't. It was how it was explained and who was calling it and how it came down. So, it's like the Cowboy game. That's a better example with Des Bryant, where they called it a touchdown on the field, and then they went back to replay and reversed it, and everybody's getting on the white hat for the game going, oh, he's an anti-Cowboy. And go, he called it a touchdown. His guy in the corner called it a touchdown. They reversed it in New York. Don't get on the guy on the field. He's got nothing to do with it.
Don't get on either guy. They called it correctly. That's the other thing.
Right.
Exactly. So, but that puts them in a tougher position, because you almost want to hand the headpiece to the head coach and go, I didn't call it. This guy did in New York. Talk to him. I didn't call it. I called it the way you wanted it called. So it's very difficult when you get in those situations for those guys, because ego gets in the way and all kinds of stuff happens. We just heard a story from Major League Baseball, the worst umpire in the world, Mr. Angel Hernandez.
Yeah.
Refused to turn a call over of his that he was told was wrong, and he said, no, I'm not changing it. And they went on and played the game. And then he wonders why he didn't get a playoff game. But you have a lot of guys in those positions that have that ego, and it makes it very difficult to get them to look at something and say, I got it wrong. They just won't do it. And it's very tough. So.
Stevie Wonder could call a baseball game better, call balls
better than Angel Hernandez.
Anybody can. Just want to mention very quickly 2 careers that ended over the past 7 days. We don't know if Serena Williams' career has actually ended yet for tennis, but she is definitely taking a long break. You might see her again in the very distant future, but if she leaves with 23 Grand Slam titles and gets the honor of best tennis player at least this decade, at least since the 2000s, and very arguably the GOAT of women's tennis. It's not unarguably, but Sue Bird played her last professional game last night after the Seattle Storm lost in the WNBA playoffs. Won titles in 3 different decades in the WNBA, played countless players, and really changed the game, was really part of the change of the game from what was 60 to 58 games to what you see now, which is an offensive boom. And it's very interesting to see one of the pioneers of women's basketball in this century call it a career, not playing anywhere in 2022 or 2023 and beyond. All right, that does it for a smorgasbord of everything. Mr. Tufaro, thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us again. We're going to see you a ton this football season, and expect a lot of giant fetching from me. Hopefully not, as the season goes on. And for the other two guys,
I have a very good data plan because of you two guys. So
yeah, you should. You absolutely should. For Anthony Strait as well as Jay Kaplan, coming at you from Acrisure Stadium in the background and not Heinz Field, as much as he might say it. This has been On the Sports Lines. It took me a second to find out it was Acrisure Stadium, and I was meaning to do that all show long. Anyway, if you want to see us on demand, go to youtube.com/onthesportslines. We should have the link up for that tomorrow. Facebook.com/onthesportslines if you want to watch us live like you are right now. Thank you. And ONTH Sports Lines for our Twitter handle. And as the football season begins and as baseball is heading down the home stretch, which we should talk about next time, you're going to see a lot of nuggets on our Twitter handle. As this was fun. The NFL is back, and I cannot wait to go through this season and lose a lot of money and be embarrassed in fantasy football. Anyway, from On the Sports Lines, good night.
Good night, everybody.
Everyone.
Good night.